Hey NAI football fans, Cory Thorpe here with another edition of the NAIFBALL podcast powered by AdCraft USA, your custom apparel, merch, and uniform experts. Our friends at AdCraft have been with us for many years now. They've run web stores for us multiple times. These guys are NAI fans and family who are experts in the apparel and merchandise world. AdCraft allows you to take the hassle out of ordering. Let their knowledgeable design and customer service staff handle everything from hosting the store online, shipping the product, and helping your customers so you can get back to the game. Find them online at adcraftusa.com. All right, guys, tonight on the NAIAF Ball podcast, we have head coach Matt Myers from Kansas Wesleyan University. If you missed it back in December, Kansas Wesleyan said goodbye to Myers Hendrickson as he left for Division I Western Illinois, Kansas Wesleyan's second consecutive head coach that has taken a Division I job after being the head coach of the Coyotes. Coach, how are you doing tonight?
I'm very well. Actually, just hanging out. I'm in West Point this week. Hanging out with Coach Drinkle and the boys, hanging out, getting some. It's our spring break, so I got some time to do some professional development and hang out with everybody. So
some people head to Florida and you head to New York.
It's a very distinct thing that you do. You go towards your friends and away from warm weather and all that is good, I guess, in the United States, because I don't want to hang out with the people that I hang out with all week. I want to hang out with people that know more than me and get introduced to their perspectives more often than not. So that's what I'm doing this week.
That's always good. So you are no stranger to Kansas Wesleyan. To say that's actually sort of an understatement. You went to high school just southeast of Salina, Kansas. You went to Kansas Wesleyan. Your wife is from Salina. You've just grown up in that area. This will be your 7th season at Kansas Wesleyan total. Obviously, the first of the helm, and according to what I hear, you're the first alum since 1936 to lead the Kansas Wesleyan program. The alum graduated in 36. He coached in the 40s. So talk to me about Kansas Wesleyan and how being in and around Salina has impacted who you are and why you want to be the head coach of the Coyotes.
To me, it's very easy. I didn't grow up in an athletic family or a sports family. My dad wasn't a head coach or a football coach. My mom has no clue what's going on. They're service workers. My mom stayed at home and baked cakes, and my dad worked on hydraulics his entire career. Started his own business type of deal. I watched him do that growing up. So I grew up outside of town working. Like, we always worked doing something in a way. My brother's a very successful financial guy. But when we were growing up, it was you worked out in in our home out in the country, and that's what we did all the time. And then in our spare time, we got to go play sports. So it was very important to my dad, my grandfather especially, that we all went and participated in athletics, right? So whatever season it was, we went and did that, right? So, I played football, basketball, baseball, did get in a track a bunch, a little bit of wrestling when I was younger. And really what happened was you were either working or you played sports. So as a younger man, I gravitated to playing sports and being around athletics instead of working, because working sucked and, making a buck just wasn't as attractive as going, to the weight room or going to, the baseball field or football field or whatever season it was. So that's how I grew up. I mean, it was, you either go to the shop with your dad or you go to the field. And I chose the field over working, I guess. And once I got out of college, by the way, I didn't graduate college the first time through. I dropped out of college and I put my wife through optometry school. So I was living in Memphis and I was just working. I went to work. So it's a very unique path, the way I got back to Kansas Wesleyan to Coach Strinkle and the guys that I ended up playing for later in my 20s than I guess normal people would have done it. Like I was 26 years old. I went back. I hung out with Strinkle and John Micheletti and Vince Phillip are head coaches now in the NAIA. I did all that stuff, had a really, really good time with them. And then I got involved in coaching after, kind of an 8-year swing of working in the private sector.
So I just when I hear that, I almost kind of think of like the Florida State Chris Winkie story, coming back to college in the late 20s and coming back a little more seasoned and understanding what it's like out in the real world. But as you've still got a lot of continuity with Kansas Wesleyan at this point. I want to talk about a little bit of last season here. Y'all start off very strong. You get a close win over Bethel, which has gotten a lot better over the last few years. We'll see how they do, where they now have a new head coach. A lot of turnover in the KCAC this offseason. Really been interesting.
A ton of turnover. We'll see. I think we're going to bring in another triple option team. Terry went to Friends, who is a very qualified, very talented coach. But yeah, we got. I think Bethel and Friends are going to be running the triples. So we'll see how that.
I'm interested. Plays out. I'm really interested to see whether that makes defending the triple easier, since you get to see it twice as much, or if that competition between the two triple option schools makes each better at what they do and makes it harder to defend. I'm really interested to see.
If you're going to defend something, I'd rather see it twice a year than once a year. So I would make the assumption that it's never easy. Obviously, it's very difficult. It's it's what it is. But you're going to show up and see it twice a year. That's 1,000% better than seeing it once a year, because now you're going to prepare for something, just like it would be a spread offense or anything else you see. You're going to prepare for it twice instead of the one time through. So and we'll see what happens. Now, I don't know that Bethel is going to actually run that offense. That's what I've heard, but I do not know that for a fact.
I think they are. With who they brought in was a guy who had been there and run the triple, and I think he kept some of the coaching staff as much as he could. So I do think they're going to continue to run the triple. The other team that also made a move was Ottawa, and bringing in Nick Davis there for the Braves. So you're really seeing 4 teams out of the KCAC. 4 out of the 11, you're almost looking at a full third there of the teams that were in there in 2021. And then you see a new face, which we'll get to in a minute. So there's a lot of new faces in the KCAC. But a year ago, y'all run the table. You get past Avila. You get past Bethel there in the early going. And then you run into Brad Cagle in Southwestern.
And Coach Griffin, who I respect a ton, obviously enough that I brought Bauer on. Like he's an incredible human being. He's highly intelligent. He does everything exactly how I think it should be done. But both those guys, Coach Griffin at Southwestern and Bauer. And so I asked Bauer, I called him up. I asked him if he cared if I asked. I basically got permission to invite Bauer to come up and hang out. And so he brought his wife up, and we took him around town and hung out with him for a little bit. And I gave him the finer points of what it would be like to make a move. And he'd been there for 5 years, and I've known him for the last 4 years. I didn't know him the first year he was there, but I got to know him when he came up and was the liaison for our conference when we hosted our first playoff game in the history of Kansas Wesleyan in 2018. So he popped in at my house. We hung out that night, Coach Wrinkle on our staff, and Coach Bauer. So I've been kind of in correspondence with him for the last 4 years. And that's how kind of that, relationship and, hiring process went. He just, I happened to have a spot open. I needed someone to come and call the offense because I'm not going to do it. Thank God he said yes. In my opinion, I think he's very, very, very qualified. I think he's going to do some incredible things at Kansas Wesleyan that, that maybe have been done before, but, I think he can it's possible where he pushes the envelope and does some stuff that you haven't seen before in our league.
You know, you get Southwestern there at the end. Y'all do lose. I'm sure that the day that Brad Cagle is no longer wearing a Southwestern College uniform, you will be very, very happy. Talk to me about that last kind of 3 week stretch. It's a weird stretch for y'all. A loss at home, a game that didn't happen, and then having to then turn right around and play Morningside. What was that kind of 3 week stretch like for your team?
It was I think we spent 10 out of 20 days on a bus. Essentially, is what happened to us. We were living on a bus and on a bus, so I was listening to our line coach hack up. That's all I remember because it was it was a nightmare.
Oh, no.
We just happened to travel around the country, got to play one game instead of two. You know, we got trapped in Kansas City on the way back as our the drivers can only drive for so long, and there was a lot of issues with drivers and how many buses you could have and where people were going across the country at that time. So some of it was very, very difficult, and it was. Let me just say this: if you get to host a playoff game, it's 10 times better than having to travel and not host a playoff game. And even when we went to Indiana Wesleyan, which that situation was unprecedented and very, very strange. But we're still on a bus for 2 days, 2.5 days, driving there, driving back, and then we got off. It was Thanksgiving break or whatever it was, and then you're back on a bus, and then you're a lot of bus time, a lot of windshield time, as the old men would say.
That cannot be good for your team, and I think we may have seen a little bit of how that maybe affected y'all there in the game against Morningside. One thing I do want to bring up is having the coherence of coaches for y'all. You get promoted from within. You bring in an offensive coordinator that they know. You bring back a quarterback who was steady setting records for Kansas Wesleyan as your assistant coach. Talk about bringing in these guys and making sure that everything is cohesive for next year being the first year of your tenure.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my entire coaching experience has been built around, Coach Drinkle and Coach Micheletti and Vince and all the boys. I don't necessarily think that hiring someone with accolades is more important than hiring someone that love and trust. To me, I would rather work with people that I know, love, and trust than someone that, had a ton of success doing it, somewhere else. So that was my mindset going in. Also, I just need people that are like-minded and that will listen and give me good feedback, right? So, you talk about Photo. He played here. I worked with him a bunch in 2018, 2019. I know James Bauer. He's an incredible human being. David Leonard, who's, I promoted to the defensive coordinator. We hired him last summer. Now he's a very interesting case because he played wide receiver at Wyoming. He's been in Salina, Kansas for a while, working and stuff, but he married a gal that I graduated high school with. So everyone that's on my staff, I know personally. I feel I know them very well. There's no transitory, like I'm trying to find out who they are while I'm teaching them what I think, the systems and processes are. It's just, this is the way we do stuff. Everyone can kind of get in sync and we're going to roll. So all of our graduate assistants all played football here. And so when I sit down and have a staff meeting, everyone knows how it works. We sit down, we talk about it, and then everyone gets to go to work. We don't have the training aspect of, staff isn't as intricate, I guess, as it could be.
Yeah, that the on-ramp is a little shorter for those guys who know how you like to run things and how things have been run. It definitely shortens the on-ramp. Looking at your team, you're losing quite a few folks off of your offense, whether it be Isaiah Randall at quarterback, Stevie Williams and Aaron Jenkins at wide receiver, Chase Strother on your offensive line. Talk to me about getting an offense together and ready in a conference where Kansas Wesleyan has been known for its offense.
We did lose bodies, but we have guys coming back. I think we have some young guys that will have to step up, obviously, and then we'll have to feasibly go recruit a position or two to come in and play. I mean, we were left with not a tight end or H-back that played, I should say. But there's guys that are going to show up this spring, and we're going to find out. I don't know, to be honest with you. Offense is very specific because we have guys on roster that didn't get to take reps for us in practice or games or whatever. Like, they're going to get to show up and go to war this spring, and then we'll find out. I don't have any negative expectations for offense. I think we're going to score a ton of points. We will see what's going to happen, and then we're doing it right now. We're going to recruit guys that can come in and play in our offensive system, Coach Bauer's offensive system, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch and see how it turns out. A lot of people ask me that same question, like, well, what's going to happen? What do you think is going to? I don't know. I can't tell you what's going to happen. What I can tell you is we're going to show up and we're going to take a ton of reps this spring, and we're going to find out, who wants to keep playing Kansas Wesleyan football. That's what I know. Beyond that, it'll be once we show up in August, because this is the first off season we've had in 3 years. Like, we just haven't been able to do this in forever. So it's going to be very, very fun to get to go and play risk-free football.
Defensively, you've got a little more certainty on your plate where a lot of the guys who you've got coming back, obviously that was your side of the ball. You've got all-conference guys at all three levels, whether it be on the line with Parker and Sanchez, or in your linebacking core with Gabriel, or in your defensive secondary with Uriosti. And his 4 interceptions a year ago. One thing that strikes me is the amount of tackles for loss, forced fumbles, interceptions, big game-changing, momentum-swinging plays that I see out of your defense. Talk to me about becoming even more havoc-causing on that side of the ball.
The thing that drove our defense last year was the amount of depth we had. I mean, I was playing 25 different guys on defense last year, which is, it's unheard of, basically, the amount of depth we had. And we graduated a few guys that didn't play for us, but we also have, I think we have a bunch of young guys that are going to show up and go to war for us. So it's going to be one of those things where I don't see a drop off defensively. You can say whatever you want to, you still got to show up and whoop someone's ass. So there's going to be a point for us this spring where we're going to see who wants to, replace some of the guys that played for us. Because if we want to be as deep and play as many guys, we'll see. We'll see if we're capable of doing that. But the best players are going to play. I'm not going to, take someone off the field that is, our all conference guys played, 60% of games. They weren't playing 80, 90% of games. They were playing half of the games because we were so deep on our defense. So it'll be interesting to see who steps up, who wants to get the in-game reps that I feel comfortable with them taking. Coach Leonard feels comfortable with them taking, as opposed to, showing up and, playing 15 guys. I would love to play, 25 guys a Saturday. That is, to me, that's valuable, and it makes sense. But maybe the kids don't always love it. I don't really care, but it's, production-wise, it worked for us last year, and I didn't have a problem doing it. Now we'll see if the guys that are leaving, guys about ready to graduate, if dudes are going to step up and replace those guys, then we can do that again. If not, that's fine. We'll shoulder it with the best players on the field at all times. That's the only way to win all of your games and be super successful. So we'll see how that works out.
Guys that are much, much football smarter than I have told me time and again that in-game reps of as many players as you can get on there that are going to help you win is a great way to develop a program long-term. So I definitely vibe with that idea there. We mentioned it a little bit ago, but I want to circle back on it. Talk to me about the addition of Evangel into the KCAC. Back when we talked to Southwestern early on in this process, that wasn't even a thought that they were going to be joining to the public at least. But talk about adding that 12th team to the conference, what that means for the KCAC, and the addition of Evangel specifically.
Immediately it gives us another guaranteed qualifier for the playoffs, which is very, very important for us as a conference. And, also I think they're a quality team. So the competition level immediately goes up. I don't know a ton about Evangel. I haven't tracked their, last 5 years of performance. I just know that they're a quality team from a quality conference. So it's what it is. Now we have to go battle someone else in our league for a championship, it's in my opinion, they're qualified to show up and win the conference. So we'll see how that goes. But the overarchingly benefit of it for our conference is now we'll get two teams guaranteed in the playoffs. We're going to split up in the divisions. That's being worked out as we speak. So it'll be fun. I mean, in my opinion, it'll be fun. I think it should guarantee us a full schedule of games no matter what. So some teams that, we're trying to schedule games on your bye weeks with other conferences and stuff like that, it becomes very difficult. It's going to solve some of those logistics problems. Now we just get to show up week 0, play through our season with a common bye week and see what happens.
I do love the fact the KCAC plays a week 0. That always in late August, you need some football. Finally, the question that I've been asking everybody, and I'll be interested to hear your opinion on it as well, is about support and building that from the outside. I see a lot of great fan support from Salina as it comes to Kansas Wesleyan, and y'all have some great facilities, and y'all do a really good job at making sure that your community is super involved in what y'all do. And so that's definitely why I want to pick your brain on this. But how do y'all connect with your alumni and with your fans to create that ongoing support on the field, on game day, and then off the field as far as boosters and monetary support goes?
There's 2 ways that I think work the best. From what I've seen in the last 6 years, and even when I was playing at Kansas Wesleyan, because the second that you show up for a game day, they have something going on. So last year they had live bands and opportunities to show up and tailgate with food and bands and drinks outside. It was very college football like, in my opinion. And and Steve Wilson, who's our AD, does an incredible job doing that. In my opinion, he just does it was better than I've seen it in prior years. And there's a gal on our campus named Bridget Weiser. Her and Colton Spresser, and there's a couple other people on our campus that lead some of these events on game days that really, in my opinion, it's really, really good. It doesn't make you feel like, oh, okay, you're walking out because I was around in 2005 when you were walking out to the field and it was just my mom and my grandparents and Joe Rollins' mom and Justin Schropp's, all the local dudes' moms and dads and grandparents, okay, here we go, boys, let's go, let's win one for Kansas Wesleyan. Now it's everyone shows up on a Saturday and they're going to have fun at Kansas Wesleyan. Because, we're the only show in town. No one else plays in the town. If you want to go to a K-State game, go to a K-State game. Fantastic. But when you show up to K-Dub, we're the only one there. So it's us or nothing. And if you make the experience similar to what you would get to a K-State or a KU or whatever else is happening in Kansas that day, then why not stay in town and stay local and do all that stuff? And in my opinion, they did an incredible job doing that this past season. COVID was obviously it's not a great year to talk about, but But last season, in my opinion, was incredible.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for coming on the podcast tonight. I know there's definitely other things that you could be doing tonight, and so I'll let you get back to it and enjoy hanging out with some great folks up there in West Point, and I will let you get back to it. Thanks again for coming on the NAIF Ball Podcast.
For sure, man. Anytime. Appreciate you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the NAIF Ball Podcast presented by AdCraft USA. Be sure to contact them for all your custom apparel, merch, and uniform needs. Thanks also to Mommy Bay Turf and Turf Nation, as well as Leading Edge Fundraising for their support of the podcast. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to the podcast as well as to our YouTube channel. Leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. As always, if you'd like to support what we do, head over to patreon.com/NAIAFBALL and become a patron. We can't do what we do without our sponsors and listeners like you.